Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Alan Sun as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves on the screen. This is a track by an act named Toe titled FAR, Far. We're going to listen through it from start till finish. We're going to hear what we think. Let's go! Our latest number, Asia Tour 2019 second leg. Nice to hear him play live. Don't always get that often nowadays. And the piano playing is solemn and reflects the mood of the vocals well. Oh, he's using a drum sampler down there. Nice offbeat accent here. Very slow tempo. 2 and 3 and 4 and... Nice work on the hi-hats though, liking that sizzle to it. A gradual build there with the rim shots. Nice little bit of articulation on the higher end of the guitar. So we're doing reverse delay takes on the guitars or something like that. It's tight with the chemistry between the band members. You can tell they're a polished act. I mean, it's not just that the drummer is playing with a finesse on this kit, cymbals with the interesting 16th and almost 30-second note grooves considering the tempo, but it's also that we're doing backing vocals on top. It's really impressive, you know? Damn, that bell hit was smooth. A really clean bass tone as well. Nice foundation for everything else to rest on. I mean, like, the singer is really calling out there. Lots of passion for the performance, great stage presence. And the gradual build and speed of it, increase in BPM. And that was it. We're done. I have to admit, that's fairly wild, with just the keys to finish. I mean, that kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it? I mean, like, I'm not familiar with the track, so I wasn't expecting it to hit like that at the end. It was a tight live performance, though. Oh, look at the crowd. There's so many people. Congratulations to Toei with the track Far. I think it's phenomenal that a band gets that kind of crowd. Clearly they earned it, man. There's a lot of finesse to that performance. Second leg. Nice. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track by an act named Toei, titled FAR or FAR. Now, I think I originally called them Toe without realizing that it was a Japanese band, as I understand. So Toei would probably be the way to pronounce it if I'm not mistaken. Feel free to correct me in the comments. But, you know, what do I think this track is about? I don't have a translation for the lyrics, which is okay. I don't expect them. Sometimes it's nice just to have a little bit of mystery behind it so that you can sort of figure it out or imagine what it could be on your own. What do I think the track is about without having a translation of the lyrics? I think it does kind of sound like someone is crying out that they need help. It starts off very somber and very kind of quiet, and things gradually build into this crescendo across the development and continuation of the song itself with the various themes that pop up. And then we get to an end where there's a huge build-up, almost a climax of that pressure and fear and every other emotion that's present there, that's apparent in the performance itself. And then we finally have that bit where it just gets so loud, it's feral, it's ferocious. That's someone dealing with their emotions until they can't contain them anymore. That's what I think the track is about with Far. Maybe it's being far away from your home, far away from a place where you can be safe. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, I still appreciated being able to listen to it. I thought it was very well played, and I'm happy with their live performance. It can be difficult to nail a live performance, especially if you're really tight in the studio. And granted, I haven't heard these guys with their studio work, but I presume if they're this tight live, the albums are going to be fantastic. So, given that, the vocal performance from the singer was great. I don't think it was a phenomenally polished performance in the sense that it wasn't like a sterilized, safe appearance there with the microphones. It was more of a case where I think we wanted to gently at first communicate what we were going through to the listener, our emotional anguish, until we eventually gave more and more and more and more. We just kind of stood up and we screamed out and we needed to shout that out. And that was the kind of, not only the phenomenal amount of dynamic range of the performance and the personality there and drama of it, but also that is technique within itself. It's the ability to be able to make those sounds and induce those feelings and communicate that through the way you express yourself, and that is phenomenal. I liked the way we held ourselves with the various intensities of the singing, but also the backing vocals and the drummer are fantastic, and just I think ultimately the highlight was basically just the intensity of the we went 100%, especially at the end, and there was no note out of place. I think that it sounded the way we needed to be, and no complaints on that front. I'm assuming knowing what the lyrics are with the translations or even in the native language be even more powerful, so I can understand why this means lots of people considering that. But outside of the vocal performance and the almost melancholic way we're expressing ourselves, just trying not to lose ourselves within the ether of our own consciousness. We have the track itself at 6 minutes or so, and it's a long track, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good use of time. We had a combination of various ingredients like the piano at the south. The piano motif not only starts the song but finishes it when everything else goes off. It's that thought process coming in and ruminating and eventually building before we cycle back off again. We can't continue to build it anymore. I mean, we had the guitarist come up with a gentle, plucked, arpeggiated bits, building into some overdrive later on, a bit of distortion, a bit of fizz and crackle later on for a bit of extra tension there. The drums with the hi-hats and gentle sort of work with the sticks, with some rim shots, gradually building into fills, the snare and crashes there. The intensity, the changes in tempo there are wonderful. Great performance there with the percussion, not a note out of place, as I said before, with the vocals, but also just to be able to float that smoothly between tempo shifts was wonderful, and to have it to be able to sing whilst you play the drums is not an easy thing to do, but they smashed it. With the guitars kind of sounding raunchy as we went further on, but gentle and delicate as we went on, and with them harmonizing nicely with the piano motifs there, the gentle right hand being followed by the chords and bass notes on the left. The bass player did come in at the right time around that halfway point. We were very moderate before then. We didn't overplay. I think we knew as the bassist we need to just provide, again, like foundation for the chords and everything else to sit on. Maybe kind of stay in groove and keep the drums in time or with the bass or whatever, but predominantly it was more about filling at the low end of the frequency spectrum. We did that well here. And ultimately, these different elements, with the dynamic range of the performance itself, going from very, very quiet, knowing to add things, and that by adding things within an arrangement, the layering would make things louder, but also playing those instruments harder with the dynamic markers, building up until that end where we kind of faded out and petered out and throw our drums down and our sticks down, and we just ended with the piano motif. Phenomenal bell curve to the performance itself. It's also just the fact that it wasn't a perfect performance in the sense that we weren't trying to keep things crystal clean with a continuity, like a robotic nature to keeping within the various dynamic nuances of the track here. I think we wanting it to be as much of a raw human performance as possible. I'm not saying there were flaws, but they were you get a sense that each of the band members was feeling each other. Like they were paying attention. There was chemistry and awareness of the different members that comes from a lot of experience and polish within their pedigree, and you can tell they're very comfortable on stage, and the crowd was spellbound the entire time. They played and acted and performed the way they needed to in order for it to work. And at the end of the day, the journey that we got taken on with that motif there, which started almost calm and contemplative, but then those thoughts became more and more sort of like violent, and we just ended up pent up, and we released a lot at the end, like we were screaming out for help, but no one could hear us. And it was almost like at the end, we just realized there was no one to hear us because we were too far away. That's what the instruments communicated to me without a lack of understanding of what the lyrics mean. And with the vocals included within that, and the overall aesthetic, it was very heavy. I listen to metal and stuff like that, and that's like the tones of it are heavy by virtue of the sounds of the instruments, but just the force behind it, the humanity, the shared awareness of that pain, I think that came through from how well the story was told and everything else was communicated. It was very real, and it leaves you with something to think about at the end, which is why it's both kind of leaves you kind of silent at the end, but also you appreciate the work they put into it. But I suppose finally with the motif like that and the performance being that tight, you've just got the studio recording, mixing, and mastering. Now granted, this is, I think I'm not sure how they recorded this track, but they did well. You could hear all the different individual instruments being played there. It wasn't a mix out of the mixer itself, and I kind of appreciate that. It was more of a live take, like someone on their cell phone or something like that, but it was a hell of a good recording. The vocals weren't that clear, but I think I could tell they were clear within the actual mix itself, like the live mix going out of the speakers. It's just we had the drums so close that when that heavy fortissimo part came in, you could only really hear the drums and stuff. But that's fine. That's just simply because it was louder at that bit, and microphones have a set volume limit they can take before they start to need to compress and all that. So it was still good. I think that in general the leveling was great, phenomenal amount of dynamic range against to the actual production side of things. Things weren't squeezed too much in that respect. There didn't appear to be any resonant frequencies there, nothing poking out. It was nice and wide in the stereo field, I think, in part, although I couldn't really get a gauge of that unless I listened to the mix itself, like the actual stuff out of the disc, so it was good for what it was. Things didn't seem like they were too squashed in the stereo field either. The vocals were reasonably clear, things were well filtered in EQ. I think it's just the placement of the mic, which meant that you couldn't necessarily hear the vocals that well, but that's okay, you could still hear them. And, think it was nice line without pumping, so that means that the bus compression limiting was handled. Effectively, this is my review, my SP Patrons video of this track from Toei named FAR, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go check out the various social medias and their YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time. If there's any other help, more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands out.